Okay, so let's start with my storage area. Let's put some light around here. So, now this is a little messy at the moment because I took a lot of stuff out of the paint bay that I was putting together and just kind of threw it up here. But it's still somewhat organized. So up here in these boxes, I have the various components that I'm using for different projects all in one box for each one. So you can see right here, let's see if we can see right here, the paint bay. We've got adjustable power battery system, 3D chess, LED components, and then additional electronic components that are not assigned to anything at this point. The next shelf down, this is all the various materials that I use for casting, creating molds, casting resin. So in here is, like in this container here, is the actual resin supplies, the resin release, some molds, and also in there is supply for making the molds. So I have some existing molds and then material to make molds. And then just some various chemicals and whatnot. And some of that is actually for paint, since my paint bay is kind of, or my paint shelf is kind of overstocked at the moment. But once I clean this all out, because one of the things I've been doing a lot of sanding and stuff, so I moved the sanding piece over here. But that won't stay there. It'll go back once I'm done with that part of the sanding, and then I'll return this whole shelf to a paint bay. Okay, whoop, sorry about that. Now then, here's a little clever hack for tape. If you're new to hobbying, then one thing you're going to learn is you're going to need a lot of tape and different types of tape for different needs. So what I've done is, this is actually just an old metal pole I had from something else years ago. Typically, anything that I don't use anymore but I think may have a use, I just keep and then try to reuse it. So what I've done, and you can use a dowel, a wooden dowel, which is just like a little wooden pole like this, as well. It doesn't have to be made of steel. But you can see here, these are just zip ties going through the shelf. And on this side, again, zip ties, and I have left these pieces out so the tape can't go this way. And for this part here, it can't pull off. So that this side is the side that I get the tape out. And because, let's back up a little, because this rocks, I can slide that off and then pull the tape out that I need. This keeps it nearby for me to grab and use when I need it, but it gets it out of the way and it's not taking up a lot of space. So various tape, here's masking tape, here's a wide masking tape. This is a kind of a cellophane tape. This is very good when you are making molds or putting together pieces when you're working with resin, because the resin won't stick to this type of tape. And then duct tape, which I'm almost out of and need to reorder. Duct tape is enormously helpful for a billion different tasks. And then what this stuff is nano tape, and this is two-sided nano tape. And I use this for a couple different ways. I use it for affixing things that they don't want sliding around, but that it can be easily peeled off. It's also excellent to cut a little piece of it and put a little miniature. So what I have is like a large nail, and I'll put this on the head of the nail and stick the miniature that I'm painting right onto that. and then my hand's away from the miniature, from the figurine, and I'm not getting paint on myself. Down here we have some wood putty, which actually belongs up in here in the sanding. But I was just using it yesterday, so I have it laying out still. And then there's some polyurethane, some paint, some rubbing alcohol, spray adhesive, all kinds of different stuff that I use for painting and assembling various things when I'm working with wood primarily. So that's kind of what that stuff is. Then at the bottom is wood stains, paints, paint brushes, Thompson water seal. So if I'm making something that's going to be outdoors or going to be someplace damp, I'm going to want to protect the wood and seal it. Okay? And so that shelving unit, even though I have shelving units all over the place, the stuff that I use the most is going to be right next to me. Okay, and right down here is actually a old kitty litter pail that I use as a trash can. So why spend the extra money when I bought it there and reuse it for something purposeful? Now, getting yourselves one of these, I would highly recommend. And these are just little drawers for storing lots of screws, nuts, bolts, everything. You may not initially start out with a ton of hardware, but eventually, over time and as you do multiple projects, and you're gonna end up with a whole bunch of different sizes of wood screws, washers, bolts, rivets of all kinds of different things. It's a real pain in the butt when you're working on something and then you have to go over to like a jar and pour it out and sift through it, looking for the right size screw, the right size nut, the right size bolt. What, Lucky? You want to help me make the video? No, he wants something to eat. I think I'll pause right here. We'll be back in a moment after I've fed the kitty. And we're back. The kitty's all nice and happy. Okay, so having this stuff pre-sorted and labeled makes life so much easier when you're looking for the right tool, hardware, thing that you need for the project you're working on. So you're going to have lots of wood screws at some point, and they're going to be of different sizes. So my system is, the letters here tell me that these are short screws that are small, short screws that are medium in size, then medium length screws, so they're going to be thicker, beefier, but they're going to be short. Then large long screws, or large medium, oops, these are backwards, small long screws, and then we've got large bolts and washers across here. So at a quick glance, I know what I need, and I don't necessarily have to have them all in sizes here. So I typically, so like with this group here, you can see there's different lengths, but they're all with the bolt top. So that's for a specific type of design of bolts that I'm going to use. Okay. If you're going to be dealing with electronics, then you're going to need risers. And risers are just little pieces that have threads on both sides, so you can screw them into a panel. It raises them off of the surface, which then keeps them from overheating or from damaging by being up against something, or from getting an electrical short or damaging the circuit board. So all this stuff you can get on Amazon, you can get on AliExpress, which are probably my two favorite places to shop, and they're relatively inexpensive. Okay, and then I've got things like electrical hardware, adhesive, wire brackets, Allen wrenches. Allen wrenches are another thing that you just can never have too many. Okay, so inevitably you're working on something and you don't have and it's not a screwdriver, it's not a Phillips or a flathead, you need some kind of Allen wrench. So I've got pretty much all the different sizes in there. Okay, again, for you novices, these are drill bit collars. These are another wonderful thing to get, because what they do is there's a little screw there. You put the drill bit through that hole and then you tighten it with that screw, and you can set where on the drill bit you want it for the depth that you're going to drill that hole. So as it's drilling, when it gets to the depth, then that collar won't let you drill any further. This is wonderful to use when you're drilling, but like drilling through, you'll damage something on the other side, or you don't want to drill into the table that you're working on. Having these little drill bit collars, they're really inexpensive, will make your drilling so much easier. These are a bunch of different drill bits. And so actually, if we take one of these drill bits, like so, and one of these collars, then you can see right here how it would fit on. And then that would just screw down tight, and it will only let me drill to that point. And I can move it up or down, depending on how deep I need that hole to be, so that I don't overshoot it. This also makes it nice to have, so that you have a uniform looking holes when you're done. They're not too deep or too shallow. Okay. Okay. Moving on. For the staple gun. These are nails. Most of these are actually for the nail gun that I have. Then I have a couple of loose nails. Okay. Always going to have some miscellaneous. And this is for all the kinds of things that you have just a couple of and you don't know where to put. So, we have some O-rings here. We've got this, you put wires in. This is a quick connect for connecting a couple wires together. I've got different types of just pieces of various things. So when I'm looking for a solution, I'll often go to my miscellaneous drawers and what can I use to work. Okay. Hinges will be another thing that you'll end up with a bunch of them over time, because typically you just don't buy one or two hinges. You have to buy them in packets. You're not going to use all the hinges that come with it, and especially for the small ones, so you put the leftovers there. Okay, saw blades, just my collections for the Sawzall and power tools that I have. Now most people don't have these, but these are actually thin wrenches, and I've collected these from when I've bought furniture at like IKEA, or assembling an office chair or something that you get from Amazon or Walmart or something like that. And I just hold on to them, and it's nice because sometimes you need to get a wrench into a very narrow spot, and most of the wrenches that you buy are just too thick. So these didn't cost me anything because they were included in whatever furniture I bought, and I just hold on to them. Anchors for hanging pictures and stuff. And then over here, more miscellaneous kind of stuff. Here's a bunch of different dyes, both in powders and liquids, for the resins. Those I like to keep safe, dry, and because if they spill or get on something, it's stained, it's ruined, forget about it. Okay. Then I've got here, so these are some rivets, some snaps, washers. I use a ton of washers for various things that I'm working on. So I always try to keep a box in there. Wood screws and regular screws. I like using the screws that are not Phillip or flat, but are like the Allen key or the hex key design. They strip less often, and they work better for me, so that's what I prefer to get. So you'll see most of that in my shop. And then up here it's just larger items that wouldn't fit in tiny drawers. I've got magnets, I've got anchors, more brackets, bearings, knobs, just pretty much anything and everything that are those little odds and ends that you're going to use on different projects. Up here, got a power supply up there. That's a bunch of extension cords. This is mostly where I keep my extra supply. So another thing you want to keep a good supply of is the rubber gloves or exam gloves. You're going to be handling paint, varnishes, various other chemicals, and so you want to protect your hands. And there's two different types of gloves. So those black ones up there, and then you can see these blue ones here. Now the blue ones are just regular, like examination gloves. But the problem with them is that when they come in contact with certain chemicals, they can degrade and just rip and tear. So when I'm handling chemicals and solvents, I will use those black gloves because they're actually designed for that, so they will not degrade and get damaged while handling it. Okay, and the rest of the stuff is just